This is Ez, the poor African boy who dined with the American president. How was he able to achieve that? Well, sit, relax, grab your popcorn, let's find out.
Eze was born in a small village in eastern Nigeria. His father was a poor farmer who worked hard every day, hoping for a better future. His mother, Mama Eze, sold food at the local market, and Eze often helped her attend to customers. Their family was poor, but they were happy. Laughter always filled their little house, and love kept them strong. Eze had a big dream: to become a doctor. He wanted to wear a white coat, treat sick people, and save lives. But deep down, he knew it was almost impossible. His father could barely afford to buy food, talk more of sending him to university. One night, as they ate dinner, his father looked at him and said, "Eze, my son, I may be poor, but I will do everything possible to help you become a doctor." Eze's heart filled with hope. He held on to those words like a promise. But life had other plans. Eze and his parents continued to live as one small, happy family. Even though they were poor, it didn't affect their happiness. They know they got one another, and it's enough for them. But one day, Eze noticed something strange. Papa Eze had been coughing for weeks, but at first he dismissed it as a minor sickness. "It's just the harmattan," he would say, waving off Mama Eze's concerns, but then his cough worsened. His body grew weaker. Some days he could barely get out of bed. One afternoon, Mama Eze took him to the local clinic. The small hospital had only 2 nurses and an old doctor who had retired from the city. After examining him, the doctor sighed deeply and removed his glasses. "I don't know how to say this, but it's cancer," he said. Mama Eze gasped. "Doctor, are you sure?" The old man nodded solemnly. "Yes, he needs proper treatment in a big hospital, but..." He looked at them with pity. "It will be very expensive." Mama Eze's heart sank. They barely had enough money to eat. How could they afford hospital treatment? When they got home, she and Papa sat in silence for a long time. That night, under the dim light of the kerosene lamp, Papa spoke in a tired voice. "We can't afford the hospital, my wife. I will be fine." Tears welled in Mama Eze's eyes. "No, my husband. We will find a way." But there was no way. With no money for proper treatment, they turned to local herbalists. Every day, Eze watched as people came with different leaves, roots, and concoctions, claiming they could cure Papa's illness. Some gave him bitter drinks. Others burned herbs and waved the smoke over him. But nothing worked. Papa's condition worsened. He lost weight rapidly. His strong, hard-working hands became thin and weak. His voice, once full of laughter, grew faint. Then one night, he struggled to breathe. Mama Eze and some neighbors rushed him to the local hospital. The small room smelled of antiseptic and sickness. The nurses tried their best, but they had no equipment. Eze sat outside the hospital, his hands clenched in prayer. "Please, God, don't take my father," he whispered. But by morning, it was over. The doctor walked out, shaking his head. "I'm sorry." Mama Eze collapsed on the floor, wailing. Eze couldn't move. He felt numb, empty. His father was gone. The burial was done quickly, following the village customs. The elders wrapped Papa in white cloth and buried him beneath the big mango tree behind their house. As the men covered the grave with sand, Mama Eze collapsed. Eze rushed to her side, holding her. Her body was weak. Her hands shook violently. "I have lost everything," she murmured. "No, Mama," Eze whispered. "You still have me." But deep inside, he knew nothing would ever be the same again. The days after Papa Eze's death were dark and empty. The house, once filled with laughter and the smell of Mama Ease's delicious cooking, now felt cold and silent. Mama Ease was no longer the same. She barely spoke. She barely ate. She barely slept. Easy would wake up at night and hear her sobbing in their small room. Sometimes he would tiptoe to her door and see her sitting by the window, staring out into the darkness. Her once bright eyes were now dull, lifeless. "Mama, please eat something," Ease would beg, placing a plate of food in front of her. "I'm not hungry, my son," she would whisper, pushing it away. "Mama, please, just a little." But she had no appetite. Ease watched helplessly as she grew thinner each day. Her cheeks sank. Her clothes became too big for her frail body. She didn't go to the market anymore. Her food stall remained empty. Ezzy tried everything. He cooked, he cleaned, he fetched water. But nothing could bring back the light in her eyes. One morning, as Ease prepared for school, Mama Ez sat him down. "My son," she said weakly, forcing a small smile. "Today I will cook your favorite meal, bitter leaf soup with pounded yam." Ease's face lit up. "Really, Mama?" She nodded. "When you return from school, it will be ready." For the first time in weeks, Easy felt a little joy. He hugged her tightly before running off to school. Throughout the day, he could barely concentrate. He imagined the hot, steaming bowl of soup waiting for him at home. He imagined Mama Ez finally smiling again. But fate had other plans. As he rushed home after school, his stomach rumbling with hunger. He was already tasting the soup in his mind. But as he turned the corner to their compound, he stopped. A crowd of villagers stood outside. Women wailed. Some men whispered among themselves, shaking their heads. Ez's heart began to pound. His feet felt heavy. "What's going on?" he muttered. Then he saw her. Mama Ez lay on the ground, lifeless. Her wrapper was loosely tied around her thin body. Her face looked peaceful, as if she were just asleep. But she was not asleep. She was gone. Easy's books fell from his hands. "No, no, Mama!" He ran to her, shaking her weak body. "Mama, wake up, please, wake up!" The village women tried to pull him away, but he fought them off. One elderly woman touched his shoulder gently. "My son, she is gone." As he shook his head violently, "No, no, she's not. She promised me she would cook my favorite meal today. She can't be dead." Tears streamed down his face. An old man sighed heavily. She had hypertension. She was thinking too much. She refused to eat. Her heart was too weak. Easy stared at his mother's still body, his heart breaking into pieces. She had died from grief. Cancer had taken his father, and now, because of what cancer had done, he had lost his mother too. Easy clenched his fists. His tears burned his cheeks. "That evil disease," he whispered, his voice shaking. The villagers looked at him. "I swear," his voice was stronger now, "I swear on my father's grave, on my mother's soul, that I will find a cure for cancer." His small body trembled with determination. "I will make sure no other child loses their parents like I did." From that day on, his heart burned with a new purpose. He would not stop. He would not rest. No matter what it took, he would find the cure. After the funeral, Easy's uncle promised to take care of him. But it was a lie. Instead, the uncle sold all of Easy's father's land and kept the money. He left Ease with nothing. Easy had no choice but to struggle for himself. But no matter how hard life became, he never gave up on his dream. He still wanted to be a doctor. The years after Mama Ease's death were the hardest of Ease's life. With no parents, no siblings, and no money, he had to survive on his own. His uncle, the only relative who could have helped, betrayed him instead. The man sold all of Papa Easy's land, the only inheritance Easy had left. "Uncle, why are you doing this?" Easy had asked, his voice shaking with anger. His uncle had only laughed. "Boy, what do you need land for? You think land will feed you? You are just a child. Go and find your own way in life." And with that, his uncle walked away, leaving Ease with nothing. Eze clenched his fists. He was truly alone in this world. Without a home, without money, and without anyone to care for him, Eze was forced to do whatever he could to survive. He began hawking in the market, selling anything he could find: pure water, ground nuts, roasted corn. Under the hot sun, he walked from one end of the market to the other, calling out to customers, "Buy pure water, ice-cold pure water." Some days he made enough money to eat. Other days he went to bed hungry. But no matter how hard things got, he never forgot his dream. He wanted to be a doctor. He wanted to cure cancer. At night, after selling in the market, he would find a quiet place under a tree and read whatever books he could get his hands on. He borrowed old textbooks from schoolmates and studied by the dim light of a candle. One night, as he sat under a street lamp, flipping through a borrowed biology textbook, a man stopped in front of him. "You again," the man said, shaking his head. Eze looked up and recognized him. It was Mr. Okechukwu, one of his teachers. The man had seen him many times, reading in the streets. "Why don't you go home and study properly?" Mr. Okechukwu asked. Eze lowered his head. "I have no home." Mr. Okechukwu was silent for a long time. Then he sighed. "Come with me." That night, Eze followed Mr. Okechukwu to his house, where the teacher gave him food and a mat to sleep on. From that night on, Eze had a place to sleep. He still hawked during the day, but at least now he had a roof over his head. Still, he knew this was not enough. He needed something bigger. He needed a way out of this life. One day, Easy was selling pure water in the market when he heard people talking about a big examination happening soon, the West African Scholarship Examination. One man said, "The best student in West Africa will win a full scholarship to study abroad." Eze's heart jumped. This was his chance. He ran to Mr. Okechukwu that evening. "Sir, I want to sit for the scholarship exam." The teacher looked at him, surprised. "Easy, do you know how tough this exam is? You'll be competing against students from rich schools all over West Africa." "I don't care," Easy said, determination burning in his eyes. "I will study. I will prepare. I must win." Mr. Okechukwu sighed. "All right, I will help you." And so, Easy began the hardest preparation of his life. While other students studied in comfortable homes, he studied by candlelight. While others had private tutors, he relied on Mr. Okechukwu's old textbooks. While others ate well, he sometimes studied on an empty stomach. But none of that mattered. Easy was ready to fight for his future. The day of the examination arrived. Eze had never been so nervous in his life. The hall was filled with students from all over West Africa. Some wore expensive school uniforms, their confidence showing. Easy, wearing his old, faded clothes, ignored the stares and focused on his paper. He wrote, he calculated, he answered every question with all the knowledge he had. When the final bell rang, he dropped his pen, exhausted. He had given it his best. Now all he could do was wait. A month later, the scholarship results were announced. Eze stood in the town square, his heart pounding as the officials called out the names of the top 10 students. The first name was called, not him. The second name, still not him. The third, the fourth, the fifth. Easy's heart sank. Maybe he had failed. Maybe he wasn't good enough. Then, and the best performing student in the whole of West Africa, the winner of the full scholarship to study medicine abroad, is EBUBE OBIO. For a moment, Eze didn't move. Had he heard correctly? The crowd burst into cheers. Some people patted him on the back. He had done it. He had won. Tears filled his eyes. He had fought through hunger, pain, and loss. And now he had finally won his way out. That night, he knelt down and looked up at the sky. "Mama, Papa, I did it. I'm going to be a doctor." But this was only the beginning. His real journey was just about to start. Eze was the best student in the whole of West Africa. He had won a full scholarship to study medicine in America. The entire village celebrated him. His mother's sister, his only kind relative Auntie Jane, hugged him tightly. "Your mother would have been so proud," she said. Eze took his time to prepare his journey to America. He was the happiest child alive. He had heard a lot about America, the land of milk and honey. So finally, he will school in almighty America. Eze could not wait to finally go to America. He spent days packing his few clothes and other of his belongings to make sure he doesn't forget a thing that he may need. Then finally, the special day came. A night to his travel day, he was too tensed. He could not sleep all night. He not wait for the day to break so that he can start going to the airport after a very long night. Finally, it was daybreak. Her auntie escorted her to the airport to give him a finally warm sent forth. At the airport, just before he left, his aunt held his hands and said, "Eze, don't forget your promise to your parents. Make them proud. When you get to America, don't get carried away. Focus on your studies. Focus on your goals. Become a medical doctor. Not just anyhow medical doctor. I want you to be the best in the world. Find the cure for cancer." Eze nodded. "I will." He hugged her auntie and went into the plane. Inside the plane, Eze felt so excited. He could smell America already. He never imagined he would enter an airplane in his life. He was just a poor orphan who had no body. The flight experience was amazing to him. After a long flight, he finally arrived the United States. Eze was amazed. The city was so beautiful, unlike what he had seen before in his life. He loved America at first sight, but America was not easy. The food was strange. The weather was too cold. The culture was different. But Eze refused to be distracted. He moved to the university where he was admitted. He loved everything about the school. This is quality education. Eze's journey in America was far from easy. When he arrived at the university, everything was different. The food, the culture, the way people spoke. At first, he struggled to understand his lecturers. The advanced equipment in the laboratories overwhelmed him. He had never seen such technology before. He studied harder than anyone else. He spent most of his time in the laboratory, researching and experimenting. But success did not come easily. In class, everyone loves Eze. He was the most talked about student in class. Both teachers and fellow students loved him. Eze was too intelligent. Even though his education was free, he had some personal needs. So in order to support himself, he works every weekend as a janitor in a restaurant nearby to get little money to support his clothing and other personal needs. Life was too difficult for him, combining his education, his research, and his part-time job. But Eze had one thing that no one could take away from him: determination. Long nights in the laboratory. While other students relaxed after classes, Eze spent his nights in the laboratory, studying cells under a microscope, mixing chemicals, and reading every book he could find about cancer research. He became obsessed. Each failure pushed him harder. He would spend hours running tests, only to have his experiments fail again and again. One evening, after months of unsuccessful trials, he slumped against the lab table, exhausted. "Why is this not working?" he whispered to himself. He had tried everything, combining herbs with modern medicine, testing chemical compounds, modifying DNA structures, but nothing seemed to work. One night, after another failed experiment, his professor, Dr. Matthews, found him sitting on the floor of the lab, staring at a pile of failed results. "Please go home and rest, Doctor," Matthews said. Ez shook his head. "No, sir, I must find the cure," Dr. Matthews sighed. "You remind me of great scientists who never gave up, but remember, even they took breaks." But Ez couldn't stop. His parents' faces haunted his dreams. He had made a promise, and he wouldn't fail. One stormy night, after 2 years of research and over 1,000 failed experiments, something changed. Ez was testing a new combination of plant extracts and immune-boosting compounds when something unusual happened under the microscope. The cancer cells stopped growing. At first, he thought it was another mistake, but when he repeated the experiment, the same thing happened. His hands trembled. He increased the dosage, and the cancer cells disappeared completely. As he gasped, he ran the test again, and again, and again. Each time, the cancer cells vanished. He had done it. He had found the cure for cancer. The news of Ez's discovery spread like wildfire. Scientists from all over the world reviewed his research. When they confirmed that his findings were real, the world erupted in celebration. Newspapers called him the boy who defeated cancer. The World Health Organization, WHO, invited him to Geneva, where he was honored with the highest medical award. As he stood on the stage, dressed in an elegant black suit, he saw thousands of people clapping for him. The world had finally recognized the poor orphan boy from Nigeria. But the biggest honor was yet to come. 1 week after the WHO award, he received a personal invitation from the President of the United States. A dinner with the President. Ez couldn't believe it. He, a poor boy who once hawked in the market, was now about to have dinner with the President of America at the White House. On the night of the dinner, Ez arrived at the White House in a black limousine. He stepped out, dressed in a classic tuxedo. Cameras flashed as reporters called his name. Inside, the grand dining hall was filled with world leaders, scientists, and top government officials. But the moment the president entered the room, everything went silent. The president walked straight to Ez and shook his hand. "Ez, you have done something incredible," he said. "You have changed the world." That night, they had a grand dinner. Exotic meals were served, but Ez barely ate. He was too overwhelmed. After dinner, the president stood up, holding a golden award in his hands. "Tonight, we honor a young man who turned pain into purpose, a boy who lost everything but refused to give up, a man who has given the world a second chance at life. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a standing ovation to Dr. EBUBE OBIO." The room erupted in applause as the president placed the award in Ez's hands. Tears filled Ez's eyes. He had finally made it. But there was one last thing he had to do. Eze walked up to the podium, gripping the microphone. For a moment he couldn't speak. The emotions were too much. Then he took a deep breath and looked up. "I stand before you today, not just as a scientist, but as a son who lost both his parents to cancer." The room fell silent. "My father, a poor farmer, died because we could not afford proper treatment. My mother died from heartbreak. I was just a boy when I swore to find a cure. Today, I have kept that promise." His voice broke with emotion. "This award is not mine. It belongs to my parents, Papa Ease and Mama Ease. I wish they were here to witness this greatness, but I know that somewhere, somehow, I know they are smiling in heaven, right now. The audience gasped. Some people wiped their eyes. Firstly, I want to thank God for helping me achieve this. Secondly, I want to say a special thank you to my Auntie Jane and Mr. Okechukwu. They were the only people that supported my dreams. They believed in me when many abandoned me. But secondly, I dedicate this award to every child who has ever gone to bed hungry, to every orphan who thinks their dreams are impossible, to everyone who has suffered because of cancer. Ezzy lifted the golden award high in the air. This is for all of us, and to every young person out there, never give up. No matter how hard life gets, keep pushing, because one day the world will hear your name. The crowd stood up, the claps became louder, and in that moment, Ez knew. His parents were proud of him. This was how Eze's life changed. He was now recognized all of the world, had traveled the world. He had stood on grand stages, shaken hands with world leaders, and been celebrated in the most prestigious halls. But deep in his heart, he knew his journey was not complete. It was time to go home. His heart longed for the red soil of his village, the place where his story began, the place where he lost everything but found the strength to fight. A hero's homecoming. When Eze's private jet landed in Nigeria, the news spread like wildfire. The boy who once hawked in the market was now a global icon. The government organized a grand welcome, but Eze had one place he wanted to go first, his village. The moment his convoy approached, the entire village came out to welcome him. Young and old, rich and poor, they lined the roads, singing and dancing. Women ululated, drummers beat their talking drums, children ran barefoot, shouting, "Eze has come home." Tears welled up in Eze's eyes. These were his people. They had seen him struggle. They had mourned with him when he lost his parents. And now they celebrated his return. Standing before the crowd, Eze raised his hand for silence. "My people," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I left this village as an orphan, but I return today as your son. I made a promise to my parents, and today I fulfill that promise. Today we shall eat and marry, and I can assure you this village will never remain the same again." A new hope has come. The villagers cheered, but they had no idea what he had in store for them. It is a new beginning, without wasting of time. Eze had used part of his award money to build a state-of-the-art hospital right in the heart of the village. It had modern equipment, well-trained doctors, and the best facilities. But the most important part, every treatment was free. "No one in this village will ever die because they cannot afford hospital bills," Eze announced. "No mother will lose her husband the way my mother lost hers. No child will become an orphan the way I did." Tears flowed freely among the villagers. They knew what this meant. No more deaths because of lack of treatment. No more herbalists giving false hope. The hospital was named after his parents, Papa Eze and Mama Eze Memorial Hospital. And above the entrance, a bold inscription read, "No one deserves to die of cancer." On the other corner, Eze had never forgotten the one person who stood by him when no one else did, his Auntie Jane. On the day of the hospital's grand opening, he took her to the edge of the village, where a massive mansion stood. Auntie Jane gasped. This is for me," she stammered. Eze smiled. "You took me to the airport when I had nothing. You reminded me of my promise to my parents. You are the reason I kept going." Tears streamed down her face as she hugged him. Your mother and father would be so proud of you, my son. Ezzy placed the keys in her hands. Rest now, Auntie. You will never lack anything again. Auntie Jane was filled with joy. She could not control her emotions. It was the happiest day of her life. But Ezzy didn't stop there. He remembered the days he walked to school with torn sandals, the nights he studied under candlelight, the hunger that gnawed at his stomach. He knew there were children in the village just like him, brilliant but poor. So he created a scholarship program for them. Any child in this village who wants to go to school will go, Ezzy declared. I will sponsor their education from primary school to the university. The children cheered. Their parents wept. For the first time, they had hope, and as he watched their excited faces, Ezzy saw himself in them. He had once been that little boy. Now, he was their hope. A message to the world. On the final day of his visit, Ezzy stood before a massive crowd. Reporters from all over Nigeria had come to cover his story. He took a deep breath and spoke. I was once a poor boy with no father, no mother, and no hope. But I never gave up, and because I refused to give up, I stand before you today. He turned to the children. Never let anyone tell you that your dreams are impossible. If a poor orphan like me can change the world, then so can you. The crowd erupted in applause. That night, as Ezzy sat under the stars, he whispered, Mama, Papa, I did it. And somewhere in the heavens, they smiled.